They told her she wasn't good enough. They told her to stay home while her billionaire husband walked the red carpet alone. To the Sterling family, Rose was just a nobody, a simple girl from a small town who trapped their son. But they made one fatal mistake. They didn't check who she really was. Tonight, the woman they mocked isn't sitting at home crying. She is arriving in a custom Rolls-Royce, flanked by security, holding the one invitation they would kill for. Get ready, because when the doors open, the Sterling dynasty is going to crumble. The air in the Sterling family dining room was always 5 degrees colder than the rest of the world. It wasn't the air conditioning. It was the sheer, suffocating weight of judgment. Rose Bennett, technically Rose Sterling, though no one in this house ever used her married name, sat at the far end of the mahogany table. She kept her hands folded in her lap, hiding the fact that her knuckles were white. She was wearing a floral sundress she had bought at a department store for $40. To anyone else, she looked pretty and modest. In this room, surrounded by Italian silk and bespoke suits, she might as well have been wearing a trash bag. "Liam," Catherine Sterling said, her voice sharp as cutting glass. She didn't look at Rose. She never looked at Rose if she could help it. The invitation for the Winter Solstice Gala arrived this morning. The committee has finally secured the grand ballroom at the plaza. Liam Sterling, Rose's husband, looked up from his soup. He was handsome in that effortless old money way. Dark hair, jawline sharp enough to cut paper, and eyes that usually held a spark of warmth, except when he was in this house. "That's great, Mother. I know you've been pushing for that venue for months." "It is more than just a venue, Liam," his father, Richard, grunted from the head of the table. "The merger with the Halloway Group depends on this night. Jessica Halloway will be there. We need to present a united front. A front of excellence." Rose felt the familiar sting in her chest. She knew what excellence meant in the Sterling dictionary. It meant money. It meant pedigree. It meant not being a former kindergarten teacher from Ohio whose father was a mechanic. "I'll be there," Liam said, reaching under the table to squeeze Rose's hand. "Rose and I are looking forward to it." The silence that followed was deafening. The clinking of silver spoons against fine china stopped abruptly. Catherine dabbed her mouth with a linen napkin, leaving a perfect imprint of her red lipstick. She finally turned her gaze toward Rose. It wasn't a look of hatred. It was worse. It was a look of amusement. "Oh, Liam," Catherine sighed, as if explaining quantum physics to a toddler. "Don't be naive. The Winter Solstice Gala is an incredibly exclusive event. The guest list is strictly controlled by the board of directors and the Halloway family. I'm the CEO, Mother," Liam said, his voice dropping an octave. "My wife comes with me." "Not this time," Catherine said breezily. She reached into her clutch and slid a heavy, cream-colored envelope across the table. It slid over the polished wood and stopped right in front of Liam. "Open it!" Liam tore the seal. He pulled out the card, embossed with gold leaf. He read it, and his face paled. "The Sterling family and the Halloway Group cordially invite Mr. Liam Sterling to the Winter Solstice Merger Gala. Admit 1. Non-transferable." "Admit 1?" Liam scoffed, tossing the card back. "This is a typo. I'll have my secretary fix it." "It is not a typo," Richard interjected, his voice booming. "Jessica Halloway is the guest of honor. Her father, Thomas, was very specific. He wants to discuss the future of the company with you, Liam. Just you. Without distractions." Rose felt the eyes of the staff on her. The maid filling the water glasses looked away, embarrassed for her. "I'm a distraction?" Rose whispered. It was the first time she had spoken all dinner. Catherine smiled, a tight, predatory expression. "My dear, look at you. You're sweet, really. But this is high society. This is business. You don't know the difference between a salad fork and an oyster fork. You wouldn't know a Patek Philippe from a plastic toy. If you walk into that room, you won't just embarrass yourself. You will devalue the sterling brand. We are trying to close a billion-dollar deal. We cannot afford to have you tripping over your dress or asking the waiter for ketchup." "That's enough." Liam slammed his hand on the table. "Rose is my wife. If she doesn't go, I don't go." "Then the merger fails," Richard said coldly. "The stock tanks, and the board removes you as CEO. Is that what you want, Liam? To throw away your legacy because you can't spend one evening away from your simple wife?" Liam looked at his father, then at Rose. The conflict in his eyes broke her heart. He loved her, she knew that. But he also loved his company. It was his life's work. He had fought so hard to modernize Sterling Enterprises, to make it his own. Rose took a deep breath. She gently pulled her hand away from Liam's grip. "It's okay, Liam," she said, her voice steady, though her insides were shaking. "Rose, no," Liam pleaded. "It's just one night," she lied. "I don't fit in there anyway. Your mother is right." Catherine let out a short, triumphant laugh. "See? Even she has the sense to admit it. Smart girl, stay home, watch a movie. We'll tell everyone you came down with a migraine. It's the polite excuse for people like you." Rose stood up. She felt small, stripped bare of her dignity. "Excuse me, I've lost my appetite." She walked out of the dining room, her heels clicking on the marble floor. She could hear Catherine's voice fading behind her. "Honestly, Liam, it's for the best. Jessica is dying to see you. She's wearing a dress from Paris that cost more than your wife's entire education." Rose walked straight to the guest bathroom in the hallway, locked the door, and leaned against the cold wood. She looked at herself in the mirror. Brown eyes, soft features, no jewelry except the simple gold band Liam had given her. They thought she was nobody. They thought she was weak. She reached into her purse and pulled out a phone. Not the iPhone Liam had bought her, but a sleek, black device with no brand markings. A satellite phone she kept buried at the bottom of her bag. She dialed a number. It rang once. "Status?" A deep voice answered on the other end. No pleasantries. "It's me," Rose said. Her voice had changed. The softness was gone, replaced by a tone of steel authority that would have made Catherine Sterling choke on her wine. "I need a status update on the Holloway acquisition." "We secured the majority share 10 minutes ago, Ma'am," the voice replied. "The hostile takeover is complete. The Holloway Group is effectively yours. We were waiting for your signal to announce." Rose looked at her reflection. A slow, cold smile spread across her face. "Don't announce it yet," she said. "I'm going to do it personally." "Very good. Shall we prepare the jet?" "No," Rose said. "Prepare the car, and get my stylist on the line, the one in Milan. I have a gala to attend." "But, Mom," the voice hesitated. "The Sterling Gala? We didn't receive an invite for your alias." "I don't need an invite," Rose whispered. "I own the venue." The next 3 days were a blur of calculated deception. To Liam, Rose played the part of the supportive, slightly sad wife perfectly. She laid out his tuxedo. She straightened his tie. She kissed him on the cheek and told him to have a good time. Liam was miserable. "I hate this," he muttered on the night of the gala, adjusting his cufflinks. "I feel like a coward, Rose. I should be walking in there with you." "Go," she said softly, brushing lint off his shoulder. "Close the deal. Make your father proud. I'll be fine here. I have a good book." He kissed her, lingering for a moment, before pulling away with a sigh. "I'll make it up to you, I promise. Tomorrow, we go to that cabin in the woods you like. Just us. No parents, no galas." "I'd like that," she smiled. As soon as the heavy oak front door closed behind him and the sound of his limousine faded down the driveway, the energy in the house shifted instantly. Rose turned around. "Is the team ready?" From the shadows of the kitchen, 2 women stepped out. They weren't maids. They were dressed in sharp black tactical suits, carrying garment bags stamped with a logo that was whispered about in high fashion circles, but rarely seen. Vandermeer. "Ready, Miss Vandermeer," the first woman said. Rose shed the simple cotton cardigan she was wearing and dropped it on the floor. "Good. Let's burn this persona to the ground." Rose Bennett was a lie, a necessary one, born of a desire to find someone who loved her for her, not for her empire. She was actually Rose Vandermeer, the sole heiress to the Vandermeer Global Trust. Her family didn't just have money. They had history. The Sterlings were millionaires. The Vandermeers were the kind of wealth that bailed out countries. She had spent 2 years living anonymously, working odd jobs until she met Liam. He was the only real thing she had found. But his family? They were a cancer. And tonight, she was the surgeon. "The dress, ma'am?" the assistant asked, unzipping the garment bag. It was a masterpiece. A deep, midnight blue velvet that looked almost black, shimmering with thousands of hand-stitched diamonds that caught the light like stars. It was strapless, with a slit that went up to the thigh, designed to command attention, not ask for it. Rose slipped into it. It fit like a second skin. She sat at her vanity while the team worked. The messy bun was taken down, her hair blown out into cascading glossy waves. The minimal makeup was replaced with a bold, smoky eye and a blood-red lip. Finally, she opened a small velvet box on the table. Inside sat the Aurora necklace. It was a sapphire surrounded by flawless diamonds, valued at $40 million. It had been in her family for 6 generations. Catherine Sterling had once mentioned reading about it in a magazine, drooling over the idea that such a thing existed. Rose clasped it around her neck. The cold metal felt grounding. "The car is waiting," her head of security, a massive man named Graves, said from the doorway. "We have a police escort arranged from 5th Avenue. "Police escort?" Rose raised an eyebrow. "The mayor insisted. Once he heard you were in town, he wanted to ensure your safety." Rose checked her reflection one last time. The simple wife was gone. In her place stood a titan of industry. "Let's go crash a party." Meanwhile, at the Plaza Hotel, the gala was in full swing. The ballroom was a sea of tuxedos and designer gowns. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto the guests below. Champagne flowed like water. Catherine Sterling was in her element. She stood near the entrance, holding a flute of champagne, greeting guests with a fake smile plastered on her face. Beside her stood Jessica Halloway. Jessica was beautiful, undeniably. Blonde, tall, wearing a gold-sequined dress that screamed, "Expensive!" She had her hand possessively on Liam's arm. "Stop fidgeting, Liam," Catherine hissed under her breath. "You look like you're waiting for a bus." "I just want to get this over with," Liam muttered, pulling his arm away from Jessica, gently but firmly. "Oh, come on, Liam," Jessica purred, stepping closer. "Don't be such a sourpuss. My father is going to announce the merger in 20 minutes. We're going to be the power couple of the decade. Think of the press." "I'm married, Jessica," Liam said coldly. "To a nobody," Jessica laughed, tossing her hair. "High school sweethearts are cute, Liam, but they don't build empires. You need a partner. Someone who understands this world. She understands more than you think, Liam defended, though his voice lacked conviction. He felt beaten down. Suddenly, a hush fell over the room. It started at the entrance and rippled through the crowd like a wave. The jazz band stopped playing. Conversations died out. "What is going on?" Richard Sterling demanded, looking toward the doors. "Why has the music stopped?" The massive double doors of the ballroom, usually kept closed to keep the rabble out, were being pushed open by 4 uniformed doormen. A man in a tuxedo, the hotel manager, stepped forward, looking flushed and terrified. He grabbed the microphone from the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice trembled, please make way. We have an unexpected VIP guest." "Unexpected?" Catherine scoffed. "I approved the guest list personally. Security, handle this." But security didn't move. They were too busy bowing. Through the doors walked 4 bodyguards. They were twice the size of the hotel security. They moved with military precision, clearing a path through the billionaires and socialites, as if they were parting the Red Sea. And then she walked in. At first, Liam didn't recognize her. He saw the dress first, the midnight blue velvet that seemed to absorb the light. He saw the diamonds sparkling like fire. He saw the necklace, a piece of jewelry so massive and exquisite it looked like it belonged in a museum. Then he looked at the face. His breath caught in his throat. His glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor, but no one noticed the sound. "Rose?" he whispered. She walked with a predator's grace. Her head was held high, her eyes scanning the room with a look of utter boredom. She didn't look like the woman who baked cookies on Sundays. She looked like a queen surveying her subjects. The crowd parted for her. Whispers erupted like wildfire. "Who is that? Is that the Vandermeer Sapphire? My God, look at her." Rose walked straight toward the center of the room, where the Sterling family stood frozen. She stopped 5 feet away from Catherine. Catherine's mouth was open, her eyes wide with shock and confusion. She looked at Rose, then at the necklace, then back at Rose's face. "You," Catherine stammered. "What are you doing here? How did you get in? Security. Remove this woman." Rose didn't yell. She didn't scream. She simply laughed, a low, rich sound that echoed in the silent room. "Remove me?" Rose asked, her voice projecting clearly without a microphone. "Catherine, you can't remove the owner." "Owner?" Richard Sterling stepped forward, his face red. "I rented this ballroom for the night. I paid a fortune." Rose turned to her bodyguard, Graves, who handed her a sleek tablet. She tapped the screen once and turned it to face Richard. "You rented the ballroom," Rose corrected him. "I bought the hotel. Specifically, I bought the controlling stake in the Plaza Hotel Group about 30 minutes ago." The room gasped. "And while I was shopping," Rose continued, turning her gaze to Jessica Halloway, who was shrinking back in fear, "I decided to pick up something else." Rose took a step closer to Jessica. "I heard your father was looking to merge with Sterling Enterprises. It's a shame." "Why?" Jessica squeaked. "Because the Halloway Group no longer exists as an independent entity," Rose said, her voice ice cold. "My holding company, Vandermeer Global, executed a hostile takeover this afternoon. I own your father's company, Jessica. Every stock, every asset, every chair you sit on." Rose turned back to Liam. His eyes were wide, filled with shock, confusion, and something else. Awe. "Hello, husband," she said, her voice softening just a fraction. "Rose," Liam managed to say. You're a Vandermeer." "I am," she said. She turned back to Catherine, whose face had gone a sickly shade of grey. "And I believe, Catherine, you said I wasn't good enough to be here? That I would devalue the brand?" Rose gestured to the room, to the hundreds of elites watching her with reverence. "I am the brand," Rose whispered, leaning in so only Catherine could hear. "And you? You're just the help." The silence in the grand ballroom of the plaza was heavier than the crystal chandeliers hanging overhead. Hundreds of New York's elite, titans of industry, tech moguls and old money socialites, stood frozen, their champagne flutes halfway to their mouths. All eyes were fixed on the woman in the midnight blue velvet dress. Catherine Sterling looked as though she had been slapped. Her face, usually a mask of haughty composure, was crumbling. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, struggling to find words that could undo the last 30 seconds. "Vandermeer," Richard Sterling choked out, his face flushing a dangerous shade of purple. That's impossible. The Vandermeer family is a myth. Recluses. They don't marry. Mechanics' daughters from Ohio." Rose turned her gaze slowly toward her father-in-law. Her eyes were hard, devoid of the warmth he had taken for granted for 3 years. "My father was a mechanic. That part is true," Rose said, her voice smooth and carrying effortlessly across the room. He loved fixing vintage cars. He also happened to be the founder of Vandermeer Aerospace. He liked to work with his hands to stay grounded. A concept you wouldn't understand, Richard, considering you haven't done a day of manual labor in your life. A ripple of nervous laughter went through the crowd. The tide was turning. The sharks in the room smelled blood, and for the first time, it was Sterling blood. Thomas Halloway, Jessica's father, and the man Richard had been so desperate to impress, shoved his way through the crowd. He was a bulldog of a man, sweating profusely. He looked at Richard, then at Jessica, and finally at Rose. "Is this true?" Thomas barked, ignoring the pleasantries. "My brokers are calling me. They say trading on Halloway stock has been frozen. They say a shell company swallowed us whole at 4:55 p.m. 4:53 p.m., actually," Rose corrected him, checking her diamond-encrusted watch. "And it wasn't a shell company, Thomas. It was me." "You can't do that," Jessica shrieked, stepping out from behind her father. Her composure was gone. "My father built that company. You're just a housewife. Liam, tell her she's crazy." Liam didn't move. He was staring at Rose, his expression unreadable. He looked like a man waking up from a long coma to find the world had changed colors. Rose took a step toward Jessica. The younger woman flinched. "I'm not just a housewife, Jessica. I'm the woman who listened to you insult me in my own home for 2 years," Rose said quietly. "I'm the woman who watched you touch my husband, knowing I was sitting right there because you thought I was powerless to stop you. You thought money gave you the right to be cruel." Rose signaled to Graves. The bodyguard stepped forward, handing Rose a document folder. "This," Rose said, holding up the folder, "is the new organizational chart for the Halloway Group, which is now a subsidiary of Vandermeer Global. Thomas, you are being retained as a consultant during the transition period, provided you sign a non-disclosure agreement and resign from the board immediately." Thomas Halloway looked like he might have a heart attack. He slumped, defeated. He knew the power of the Vandermeer name. Fighting them in court was like trying to fight a tsunami with a paper umbrella. "And Jessica?" Rose continued, turning her cold eyes to the blonde. "I checked the payroll. It seems your position as VP of Brand Relations comes with a very generous salary and very few responsibilities." I handle the image," Jessica stammered. "Well, the image is changing," Rose said. "You're fired." "You can't fire me," Jessica screamed, stomping her foot like a child. "Daddy, he can't help you," Rose said, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. "He works for me now." The room erupted. It wasn't polite applause anymore. It was chaos. People were pulling out phones, texting, tweeting. The headline was writing itself. The Sterling-Halloway merger dead. Vandermeer heiress takes it all. Catherine Sterling recovered her wits first. She was a survivor, a social climber who knew when to pivot. She forced a smile onto her face, a grotesque expression that didn't reach her terrified eyes. "Rose, darling," Catherine exclaimed, stepping forward with her arms open, as if to embrace the daughter-in-law she had called a peasant an hour ago. "Oh, bravo! What a marvelous performance! We had no idea. Why didn't you tell us? We would have thrown you a parade." Rose didn't flinch. She didn't step back. She simply let Catherine approach, then held up a single hand to stop her. "Don't," Rose said. The word was soft, but struck like a whip. "But Rose," Catherine laughed nervously, looking around at the watching crowd, trying to save face. "Surely you understand. We were just testing you." "Yes, testing you. The Sterlings have high standards. We had to be sure you were strong enough to handle this life. And look at you. You passed with flying colors." "Testing me?" Rose repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Is that what you call it when you made me sit at the children's table last Thanksgiving? Is that what you call it when you told the caterers at my wedding to serve me the budget meal? Was it a test when you told Liam he should divorce me because I would breed mediocre children?" The crowd gasped. Catherine paled, her hand flying to her throat. I never—" Catherine stuttered. "I heard you," Rose said. "I always heard you. I just chose not to speak, because I wanted to see who you really were. I wanted to see if there was any kindness in you, any shred of humanity that wasn't tied to a bank account." Rose looked at Richard, then back at Catherine. "I found nothing." Rose turned her back on them. She walked over to the stage, where the microphone stand stood waiting. She adjusted it, the feedback whine silencing the few remaining whispers. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rose addressed the room. "I apologize for the interruption. The Sterling-Halloway merger is cancelled. However, I am pleased to announce that Vandermeer Global will be investing heavily in sustainable energy projects in the city starting next month. We will be looking for partners. Honest partners." She looked directly at Liam. "I'm leaving now," she said into the mic. "I have a table reserved at Le Bernardin. Just for one. Unless—" She let the sentence hang. She stepped off the stage, handing the microphone to a stunned waiter. The crowd parted for her again, this time with even more reverence. She walked toward the exit, her velvet train gliding over the marble floor. She didn't look back to see if Liam was following. She had to know if he would choose her, or if he would stay with the ruins of his family's ego. The air outside the plaza was crisp and biting, a stark contrast to the stifling heat of the ballroom. Rose stood by the curb, where her custom Rolls-Royce Phantom idled. The chauffeur held the door open, but she didn't get in immediately. She waited, counting the seconds. 1, 2, 3. If he didn't come out by 10, she would leave. She would fly to Paris tonight and file the papers from there. It would break her heart, but she couldn't live in the shadows anymore. 7, 8. The revolving doors of the hotel spun violently. Liam burst out onto the sidewalk, breathless, his tie undone, his hair disheveled. He looked frantically left and right until his eyes locked onto her. "Rose!" he shouted, sprinting down the stairs, ignoring the paparazzi who were already gathering like vultures. He stopped a few feet away from her. He was panting, his chest heaving. He looked at the car, the bodyguards, the diamonds, and finally, her eyes. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Everything you said in there?" "Yes," she said simply. 3 years, Rose. Liam ran a hand through his hair, pacing in a small circle. 3 years of marriage. 2 years of dating before that. You told me your dad owned a garage. You told me you worked at a library to pay for college." "My dad did own a garage," Rose said, her voice softening. "It was his hobby. And I did work at a library. I wanted to be normal, Liam. I wanted to know what it felt like to earn a paycheck, to have friends who liked me for my bad jokes, not my trust fund." "But why lie to me?" Liam asked, stepping closer. "I'm your husband. I share everything with you. My fears, my failures, the pressure my father puts on me. And you were sitting on an empire? You watched me struggle to secure funding for the new tech wing, knowing you could have written a check and solved it in seconds?" "If I had written that check," Rose said intensely, "would it have been your victory? Or would you have become just another project of the Vandermeer family? Like a charity case?" Liam stopped. The realization hit him. She was right. If he had known, his pride would have been shattered. He wanted to build his own legacy. "And there was another reason," Rose said, looking away toward the city lights. "When we met, I was tired, Liam. I was tired of men looking at me and seeing dollar signs. I've been proposed to by dukes, by heirs, by men who checked my portfolio before they checked my eye color. When I met you in that coffee shop, you didn't know who I was. You bought me a muffin because I looked sad. You fell in love with Rose. Not Rose Vandermeer." Liam looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the vulnerability beneath the diamonds. "I do love you," Liam said. "I love you more than anything. But you humiliated my family in there." "Your family humiliated me every single day, Liam." Rose's voice rose, the first crack in her armor. "They treated me like dirt. And you tried to defend me. I know you did. But you never stopped them. Not really. You let them make me feel small because you were afraid of them, afraid of losing your inheritance, afraid of Richard." Liam flinched. The truth hurt. "I'm not afraid of them," Liam insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "Then get in the car," Rose said, gesturing to the open door of the Rolls-Royce. "What?" "Get in the car," she repeated. "Come with me. Leave them. Leave the company. Leave the toxicity. Leave the constant need to impress people who don't care about you. Come with me, and we can build something of our own. Or go back inside. Apologize to your mother. Marry Jessica Halloway when the dust settles. Save the merger." It was an ultimatum, the ultimate test. Liam looked back at the hotel. Through the glass doors, he could see his parents arguing in the lobby. Richard was red-faced, screaming at a bellhop. Catherine was crying, but checking her reflection in a glass pane to make sure she still looked pretty while doing it. They looked miserable. They looked trapped in a cage of their own making. Liam turned back to Rose. "I can't just leave," he said. "I'm the CEO." "You were the CEO of a company merging with Halloway," Rose reminded him. "That deal is dead. The stock is going to plummet tomorrow morning. The board will be looking for a scapegoat. Do you think your father is going to take the blame? He's going to feed you to the wolves, Liam." Just then, the hotel doors opened again. Richard and Catherine came storming out. They spotted Liam and Rose and marched over, their shock replaced by a desperate, manic fury. "Liam!" Richard bellowed. "Get away from her! She's playing games! She's trying to manipulate the market." "She owns the market, Dad," Liam said tiredly. "She's a fraud," Catherine screeched, pointing a manicured finger at Rose. "She lied to us. This is grounds for annulment. Liam, you need to call the lawyers. We can sue her for emotional distress, for fraud by omission. We can take half of that Vandermeer money." Rose laughed. It was a dark, dangerous sound. "Oh, Catherine," Rose shook her head. You really don't read the fine print, do you? Liam signed a prenuptial agreement. I insisted on it, remember? You were so happy because you thought it protected his $2 million from my poverty. But actually, it protects my $40 billion from your greed. Catherine's jaw dropped. 40 billion? Richard whispered, the fight leaving him instantly. Liam. Richard's tone changed instantly. He put a hand on his son's shoulder. Son, talk to her. Fix this. She's your wife. You love her. Remind her of family values. We can work this out. We can be a team. The Sterling-Vandermeer alliance. Think of the power, Liam. Liam looked at his father's hand on his shoulder. It felt heavy. It felt like a chain. He looked at Rose. She was waiting, her hand extended slightly, offering him a lifeline. Liam reached up and removed his father's hand from his shoulder. Don't touch me, Liam said quietly. Excuse me? Richard blinked. I said don't touch me. Liam's voice grew stronger. You don't care about me. You never have. You only care about the merger. You only care about the name. He stepped away from his parents and walked toward Rose. He stopped in front of her. I'm sorry, he said to her. I'm sorry I let them treat you that way. I was a coward. I thought if I played by their rules, eventually they would respect us. But they don't know what respect is. He took her hand. It was warm. I don't want the company, Liam said, turning to his parents. I quit. You can't quit, Richard screamed. I'll disown you. You'll be penniless. Actually, Rose interrupted, smiling, he'll be the husband of the richest woman in the state. I think he'll be able to afford a sandwich. Goodbye, Mother. Goodbye, Father, Liam said. He ducked into the back seat of the Rolls-Royce. Rose followed him, the velvet of her dress swishing softly. Graves slammed the heavy door shut, sealing them in a cocoon of silence and luxury. The tinted window rolled up, cutting off the sight of Richard and Catherine Sterling, screaming silently on the sidewalk. Where to, ma'am? The driver asked. Rose looked at Liam. He looked shaken, but for the first time in years, he looked free. He leaned his head back against the leather seat and exhaled a breath he seemed to have been holding since childhood. Drive, Rose said, taking Liam's hand in hers. Let's go home, the real one. But the story wasn't over. As the car pulled away, merging into the New York traffic, Rose's phone buzzed in her clutch. She ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. She frowned and pulled it out. It was a text from an unknown number. You think you've won, Rose? You think money buys safety? You just painted a target on your back. The Vandermeer secrets were buried for a reason. Digging them up will kill you. Rose stared at the screen. Who is it? Liam asked, noticing her tension. Nothing, Rose lied, locking the phone screen. But her heart skipped a beat. She had exposed herself to the world to save her pride and her marriage, but she had forgotten that her family, the Vandermeers, had enemies. Old enemies. Dangerous enemies. And she had just announced exactly where she was. The silence inside the Rolls-Royce Phantom was no longer peaceful. It was suffocating. The city lights of Manhattan blurred into streaks of gold and red as the car sped north, putting distance between them and the chaos of the plaza. Liam was staring at Rose. He looked like he was trying to solve a complex equation. Who texted you? He asked again, his voice firmer this time. You went pale, Rose. I've seen you handle my mother's insults for 3 years without blinking, but one text message made you look terrified. Rose gripped her clutch tight, her knuckles white. She couldn't lie to him anymore. The time for the simple wife act was over. It wasn't a text from a friend, Liam, she said, turning to face him. It was a threat. My family the Vandermeers. We didn't just fade away into obscurity. We went underground because we were being hunted. Hunted? By who? Liam asked, incredulity warring with fear in his eyes. You're billionaires, not spies. In my world, there is very little difference, Rose said grimly. My father didn't die of a heart attack, Liam. He was targeted. He refused to sell his aerospace patents to a consortium called the Omni Group. They specialize in corporate warfare, not lawsuits, Liam. Warfare. They sabotage jets, they burn down factories, and they remove CEOs who don't cooperate. Liam felt a chill run down his spine. And you think they found you? I just announced my return on national television, Rose said, a bitter smile touching her lips. I just humiliated their biggest allies, the Holloway family, and destroyed a merger they were likely funding. Yes, they found me. Suddenly, the partition between the back seat and the driver slid down. Ma'am, the driver, a stoic man named Collins, spoke with urgent precision. We have a situation. The navigation system is glitching. It's trying to reroute us to the docks. Override it, Rose commanded instantly, her voice shifting into the cold, authoritative tone Liam was still getting used to. I can't, Collins replied, his hands wrestling with the steering wheel. The onboard computer is locked out. Someone has remote access. They're cutting the brakes. Liam's heart hammered against his ribs. What? The car began to accelerate. The speedometer climbed. 60, 70, 80 mph. They were weaving through the lighter traffic of the highway, but the exit for the docks was approaching fast, a sharp turn that, at this speed, would flip the heavy vehicle. Graves! Rose shouted into her earpiece. Protocol 0, we are compromised. Hang on, Collins shouted. He slammed the car into a lower gear, trying to use the engine to slow them down, but the car was heavy. The exit ramp loomed ahead. Rose threw herself across the seat, covering Liam's body with her own. Get down! Rose, no! Liam tried to shield her, but she was stronger than she looked. Collins didn't take the exit. He yanked the wheel hard to the left, aiming for the median strip of grass and gravel. The Rolls-Royce hit the rough terrain with a bone-shattering thud. The suspension screamed as the car skidded sideways, tearing up earth and metal. Sparks flew past the windows like angry fireflies. The car spun 180 degrees and slammed into the concrete divider, the airbags deploying with a deafening pop and filling the cabin with white dust. Silence returned, broken only by the hiss of a cracked radiator and the heavy breathing of the passengers. Liam? Rose coughed, pushing the deflated airbag aside. Liam, look at me. Liam groaned, wiping blood from a small cut on his forehead. I'm okay. You? I'm fine, she said, though her shoulder was throbbing. She kicked the door open, the latch groaning in protest. We have to move, now. They'll be coming to check their work. They scrambled out of the wrecked car into the cold night air. The highway was relatively empty, but in the distance, headlights were approaching, not police cars, but two black SUVs moving in a tight formation. Graves! Rose yelled. A second later, a massive armored truck, part of Rose's security detail that had been trailing them, screeched to a halt in front of them, blocking the view of the wreck. The back doors flew open. Get in! Graves roared, holding a submachine gun. Liam froze. He was a businessman. He dealt in spreadsheets and quarterly projections. He had never seen a gun in real life, let alone an automatic weapon held by his wife's employee. Rose grabbed his hand. Liam, if you trust me, move your feet. They sprinted toward the truck. Bullets began to ping against the asphalt around them as the black SUVs arrived and opened fire. Liam ducked, adrenaline flooding his system. He dove into the back of the armored truck, Rose right behind him. The heavy steel doors slammed shut, sealing them in darkness. Go! 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 Graves shouted to his driver. The truck roared away, leaving the burning wreck of the Rolls-Royce behind. Liam sat on the metal bench, shaking. He looked at Rose, who was already on a satellite phone, barking orders in fluent French. She hung up and looked at him. The diamonds on her dress were smeared with soot. Her hair was wild. She had never looked more beautiful or more terrifying. "Welcome to my life, Liam," she whispered. "I'm sorry I dragged you into the war." 2 hours later, the armored truck turned onto a gravel road, deep in the Catskill Mountains. They passed through a heavy iron gate that looked strong enough to stop a tank, winding up a long driveway lined with ancient pines. The safe house was not a cabin. It was a fortress of glass and concrete built into the side of a cliff, cantilevered over a rushing river. It was stark, modern, and impenetrable. "This is the aviary," Rose explained as they stepped out into the biting mountain air. "My father built it in the 90s. It's off the grid. Independent power, satellite comms, filtered air." Liam looked up at the brutalist structure. "You lived here?" "I hid here," she corrected, "before I met you." Inside, the house was warm but austere. Staff members in grey uniforms, analysts, not maids, were moving back and forth with tablets. One wall of the living room was a massive screen displaying stock tickers, news feeds, and security camera footage from the crash site they had just left. Rose led Liam to a leather sofa and poured him a glass of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. "Brandy. Drink. It helps with the shock." Liam downed it in one gulp. The burning sensation grounded him. "Okay," Liam said, setting the glass down. "The Omni Group. They hacked the car. Why? Just because of the merger?" "No," Rose said, pacing the room. She had kicked off her heels and was barefoot on the polished concrete floor. "The merger was the trigger. But this is personal. The man who runs the Omni Group is Silas Mercer. He was my father's partner 30 years ago. He's the one who betrayed him. He wants the Vandermeer legacy wiped out so he can rewrite history." "And Jessica Holloway?" Liam asked. "Where does she fit in?" Rose stopped pacing. She turned to the large screen on the wall. "Show me the Holloway file," she commanded the air. The screen shifted, bringing up photos of Jessica Holloway. Not the paparazzi shots, but surveillance photos. Jessica meeting with men in suits in dark alleys. Jessica handing over envelopes. "Jessica isn't just a spoiled heiress," Rose revealed. "She's broke. Her father gambled away the family fortune years ago. The Holloway Group has been insolvent for a decade. They were desperate. So they tried to merge with Sterling to save themselves?" Liam asked. "No," Rose shook her head. "Silas Mercer bailed them out. He owns the Holloways. He sent Jessica to seduce you, to get into the Sterling family, because he suspected that I was close to you." Liam stood up, stunned. "Wait. You think Jessica knew who you were?" "She suspected," Rose said. "Silas has been tracking the Vandermeer trust funds. He noticed small withdrawals coming from the town where we lived. He sent Jessica as a probe. If she could marry you, she would have access to your house, your records, and me." "My God," Liam rubbed his temples. "She wasn't just trying to steal my company. She was hunting my wife." "Exactly," Rose said. "And tonight, when I walked into that ballroom, I confirmed their suspicions. That's why the attack happened so fast. They had a team on standby." The door to the room opened, and Graves walked in. He looked grim. He was holding a tablet. "Ma'am," Graves said, "we did a digital forensic sweep of the Rolls-Royce's system. We found the entry point for the hack." "Was it the satellite link?" Rose asked. "No, ma'am," Graves said, his voice low. "It was a direct hardline upload. Someone physically plugged a device into the car's diagnostic port before we left the Sterling estate. Rose froze. That car was in the Sterling garage for 3 days. Only family had access. Liam's face went pale. My father. It's possible, Rose said, thinking fast. Richard is desperate. If Silas approached him, promised him the merger in exchange for planting a bug. No, Liam interrupted. My father is greedy, Rose, and he's an ass. But he's a coward. He wouldn't plant a device that could kill his own son. He thought I was driving that car. Then who? Rose asked. There was someone else at the house, Liam said slowly, a memory surfacing. Yesterday, while you were sick in bed. My mother had a guest for tea. She said it was an old friend helping with the gala arrangements. Who was it? Rose asked sharply. I didn't see her face clearly. She was leaving as I arrived, Liam said. But she drove a red Porsche, and she left a scarf behind, a Hermes scarf. Rose turned to Graves. Check the security footage from the Sterling estate driveway for yesterday afternoon. Look for a red Porsche. Graves tapped on his tablet. Seconds later, grainy footage appeared on the big wall screen. A red Porsche 911 pulled out of the Sterling driveway. Pause, Rose commanded. Zoom in on the driver. The image blurred, then sharpened. It wasn't Jessica Halloway. It wasn't Catherine Sterling. It was a woman with sharp features, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing large sunglasses. I don't know her, Liam said. I do, Rose whispered, and for the first time that night, true horror leaked into her voice. She took a step back, her hand covering her mouth. Who is she? Liam asked. That's Eleanor Vandermeer, Rose said, her voice shaking. My aunt, my father's sister. I thought your family was gone, Liam said. She disappeared 10 years ago, Rose said, her eyes glued to the screen. We thought she was dead, or that she had fled to Europe. She always hated my father. She claimed he stole the company from her. Rose turned to Liam, her eyes wide. The call isn't coming from outside the house, Liam. Silas Mercer isn't working alone. He found the one person who knows all our security protocols. He found the one person who hates me more than he does. Your aunt is working with the people who killed your father? It looks like she's leading them, Rose said. Just then, the lights in the aviary flickered. The hum of the ventilation system died. The wall of screens went black. Graves! Rose shouted. Status! Power cut! Graves yelled, pulling his radio. Backup generators are failing to engage. We are being jammed. A red emergency light began to pulse in the hallway. They're here, Rose realized. They didn't just track the car. They tracked the backup truck. Eleanor knows about this safe house. She helped build it. What do we do? Liam asked, grabbing Rose's arm. Rose looked at her husband. The fear was gone from her face, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. She reached under the coffee table and pulled out a hidden drawer. Inside were 2 items, a heavy pistol and a black hard drive. She handed the hard drive to Liam. This drive contains the encryption keys to the entire Vandermeer fortune. If they get this, they win. If they get me, they win. She checked the magazine of the pistol and chambered a round with a metallic clack. They aren't getting either, Rose said. Liam, you wanted to know what I really do. I don't just sign checks. I fight. She grabbed his hand. Run to the river tunnel. The boat is waiting. I'll hold them off. No, Liam shouted, refusing to take the drive. I'm not leaving you. You said we were partners. Partners don't run. Rose looked at him. The blast doors of the safe house began to boom as something heavy rammed against them from the outside. Boom. Boom. If you stay, Rose said, there is no going back to Liam Sterling. the nice guy from the suburbs. You become an outlaw. I stopped being that guy the minute I got in your car, Liam said, grabbing a heavy fire poker from the fireplace. He stood on next to her, his jaw set. Let's introduce them to the family. The front doors blew open with a deafening explosion of sparks and smoke. The smoke from the breached blast doors swirled around the living room like a living thing. Through the haze, tactical lights cut beams of blinding white. Men in black combat gear poured into the room, weapons raised, fanning out with practiced precision. But they didn't shoot. They parted, creating a corridor. Walking through the smoke came a woman in a sharp trench coat, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. She removed her sunglasses, revealing eyes that were a cold mirror image of Rose's. "Hello, niece," Eleanor Vandermeer purred. She looked at Liam, who was gripping the fire poker with white-knuckled intensity. "And you must be the husband. Cute. Useless. But cute." "Aunt Eleanor," Rose said, her voice eerily calm. She lowered her pistol but didn't drop it. "I see you're still working for Silas. I thought you wanted to be the queen, not just a hired gun." "Silas is a means to an end," Eleanor sneered, stepping closer. "He wants the company. I want the satisfaction of seeing my brother's legacy burn. Give me the hard drive, Rose. The encryption keys. Do it, and I might let your pet husband live." Liam stepped forward, shielding Rose. "She's not giving you anything." Eleanor laughed. "Oh, look, the boy thinks he's a player." She snapped her fingers. 6 laser sights appeared on Liam's chest. "Don't," Rose commanded sharply. She looked at Eleanor. "You want the drive? Fine." Rose grabbed the black hard drive from Liam's hand. Eleanor's eyes widened with greed. She reached out, her fingers trembling slightly. "You always were the smart one," Eleanor smirked. "I am," Rose agreed, "which is why you should have checked the specs of this safe house before you blew the door." Rose tossed the drive. Eleanor caught it. As soon as the drive left Rose's hand, she shouted, "Computer! Protocol Omega!" The house groaned. Massive steel shutters slammed down over the broken blast doors and every window, sealing the room instantly. The air pressure dropped. "What did you do?" Eleanor screamed, looking at the drive. "That's not a hard drive," Rose said, backing toward the fireplace. "It's a proximity key. It armed the internal defense system, and you're holding it." Sudden, high-pitched sonic alarms erupted, disorienting the mercenaries. Simultaneously, the floor beneath Eleanor and her team dropped open, a cargo pit designed for secure loading, now a prison cell. They fell 10 feet into a reinforced containment unit. "Run!" Rose grabbed Liam's hand. She kicked the back of the fireplace, revealing a hidden slide. They plunged into the darkness, sliding down a chute that dumped them into a small speedboat, waiting in the underground river tunnel. As Rose fired the engine and the boat roared to life, shooting them out toward the open river, they heard the distant sirens of the FBI. "I tipped them off an hour ago," Rose shouted over the engine. "Eleanor is trapped in a steel box, with enough evidence on that drive to put her away for life." 6 months later. The morning sun hit the penthouse terrace of the new Sterling Vandermeer headquarters in London. Liam stood at the railing, looking out over the city. He wore a suit, but he carried himself differently now. He was sharper, harder. Rose walked up behind him, resting her chin on his shoulder. "The board meeting is in 10 minutes, she said. "Are you ready to acquire the Omni Group?" Liam smiled, turning to kiss her. He held up a file. "I already did," he said. "Bought their debt this morning. Silas Mercer works for us now. I put him in the mailroom." Rose laughed, a genuine, happy sound. The simple wife was gone. The simple husband was gone. In their place stood a dynasty. "Shall we go?" she asked. "After you, Mrs. Sterling," he said. "No," she corrected him, taking his hand. after us. What a ride. I bet the Sterlings never expected their simple daughter-in-law to be the one holding the keys to the kingdom. From a mechanic's daughter to the most powerful woman in the room, Rose proved that you should never judge a book by its cover, or a wife by her silence. Liam learned the hard way that real power isn't about money. It's about who you have beside you in the trenches. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, betrayal, and billion-dollar twists, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. Who do you think was worse, the arrogant mother-in-law or the traitorous aunt? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.